For number 5, if you made a total of 165 million and that's split between 59 ad slots, to find your average or your mean, take your total, divide by how many there are, and you get your average. For number 6, looking for the mean, median, and mode of some phone bills. I'm going to do it using Excel. Copy the data to the clipboard. Paste the data in Excel. So here's our phone bill. Excel has some great built-in functions for the mean, also known as the average. We're going to type equals average, select our data, and it gives us the average for the phone bill. We want to find the median. It's the one in the middle. We would have to arrange them all in order from least to greatest. But Excel will do it all behind the scenes for us and give us the one in the middle. And it also, if you had a lot of data, it could be hard to see what the mode is. With just 6, we can tell right away that there is no mode. There's no data value that is repeated more than the other data values. For number 7, we have data for the number of hours worked by some college students. I'm going to copy that into Excel. And when we're trying to draw the frequency histogram, notice how the data is, the frequency we're counting is for ranges of data. So the first bar is for all numbers between 0 and 4, and the next bar is for all numbers between 5 and 9, and the next one's between 10 and 14, and so on. So I'm going to make a note of that in Excel of the ranges that we're trying to count for. So between 0 and 4, then between 5 and 9, and then between 10 and 14, and so on. And it looks like Excel is trying to change that to a date for me. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to have to just change that to a number. And so on, 15 to 19, 20 to 24, and continue down. So there's just 15 data values, and maybe easiest just to count by hand how many fall into each of these ranges, and then match that up to the correct height of each histogram bar. I'll show you later how to make Excel calculate it for you automatically, which would come in handy if instead of 15, if you had 200 data values or 1,000, you wouldn't want to count through by hand how many fit into each group. But with 15, you can count by hand and then match it up to the correct histogram. So skewed right, skewed left, or symmetric. Here's the correct histogram, and because there's some outliers off to the right, we say it's skewed right. So if the outliers were instead off to the left, we'd say it was skewed left. And if everything was clumped together and pretty similar on both sides, we'd say it was symmetric. The next part of the problem wants us to find the mean and the median. We can do that quickly in Excel. For the mean, we want to type in average. So equals our average, select the data, and it'll tell you the average. For the median, equals median, select the data, tells you the median. And the last part of the problem, which measure of central tendency, mean or median, better describes the hours actually worked by our students up here. Because there were outliers will always skew the mean, because when you calculate a mean, you add up all the data values, including the outliers, and divide by how many values there are. So the mean is skewed by the outliers, which makes the median a better measure of the central tendency. And you can also look at the histogram, and 11 is more towards the center of the big clump of data here, while 13 would be a little more skewed to the right because these outliers are skewing the mean to the right. So now in Excel, if you wanted Excel to figure out the histogram for you, what you have to do is enter all of these upper ranges. So I'll finish what I was started here, 20 to 24, 29, 34, 39, 44. You can enter the lower ranges too. They're not necessary, but it can help you keep track of the groups that you're counting here. Alright, so we want Excel to count how many are in between 0 and 4, how many are between 5 and 9, and so on. So you select your data that you're trying to count, and then after selecting the data, you go to the Data tab, and way off to the right is where it's on mine. There's Data Analysis button you would hit. And one of your options there is a histogram. So I'm going to hit OK for my histogram. Let me recenter my data. Your input range is your actual values that you're trying to count how many are in each group. Your bins is here's where we want to select the upper limit for each of our bins. So that's why I was saying you don't really need to have the lower ones written in Excel, but they can help you keep track of your ranges. So I select my upper limit. You want to click Chart Output so that it'll draw the histogram. And your output range, I'm just going to find in a cell where I want it to actually display. And I click that cell. And when I hit OK, it'll show how many fell into each of these groups. So there was 1 in that first group between 0 and 4. There were 4 between 5 and 9. 5 between 10 and 14, and so on. And then the histogram was created as well, which you can see matches up to the correct histogram.